Hey class, it's me, Tanya, and I just wanted to go over the bandaging with you, so I wanted to point out a few things. So my husband is running the video camera, and my sister-in-law is going to be holding the limb, so you won't see her but her hands. But I'm going to have him pan down to the bandage material real quick. Before you start placing a bandage, you need to get everything that you need. So this is going to be my primary layer, and that's going to contact with the wound. This is going to be my popsicle stick, tongue depressor, my tape so I can make my stirrups, and then I have plenty of rolls, at least 5 rolls of 4-inch cotton. I also have 2 rolls of 4-inch cling, and then I have a roll of vet wrap. So before we get started, what I really want to do is I want to show you what you need to do with the vet wrap first, because you don't want to forget this step. So when you open the vet wrap, I did choose not to use red. A lot of people try not to use red because if there is a wound underneath there and it were to bleed through, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference with the red color. But this tab is here to help you get started. And then what we need to do, and Charlie's just you're gonna lay that down for just a second. You're gonna grab this. You're gonna have somebody grab the other end and just hold it. And then what I'm gonna do is I am going to unroll it. And you can see when you have a brand new roll, how hard it is to get this stuff off. It's really sticky. So if you were to not loosen your roll ahead of time, you would potentially put it on too tight, and then the dog's foot would swell. So I'm not going to take it off all the way because I don't think I'm going to need to use the whole thing. But now I have to roll it up, which, you know, is a pain in the butt. So when we're in class, whenever they allow us back into class one day, soon, you guys will learn how to be experts at rolling bandage material back up. And ooh, this stuff stinks, guys, by the way. I forgot, this is the no chew on it. So it has some kind of like bitter apple stuff in it, and now that I'm stretching it and rolling it, I can smell it on my hands. It's pretty gross. All right, so when you roll bandage material up, you want to make sure that you make it as neat and back to the same way as possible, especially if you're going to be the person using it behind somebody else. In the real world, we would throw it away and not use it again. And ooh, that really stinks. Sorry. All right. So now the other thing I want to show you real quick is about this bandage cotton. I'm hoping my husband can zone in close enough. So if you can see, this is the side that's going to go against the animal. If I flip this open, you can make out some diamond shapes. Can you see those diamonds? All right, so if I were to pull on this really tight, it stretches those diamonds, and that's too tight. And so when you guys are placing a bandage, I'm gonna make sure to look out for pulling too tight and stretching those diamonds. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open my Telfa. And we talked about Telfas. I wanna show you this looks just like the inside of a Band-Aid. Now, this is a non-adherent sterile Telfa. Well, it says it's sterile, but it's expired. So it does not matter where you put your bandage right now, because obviously if the animal had a wound, you'd put it there, but for the sake of our lab, you can put it anywhere you want. So I'm going to show you best measures. So here's my 1-inch tape, and this is some crappy tape, guys. It was expired stuff I found, and I didn't want to waste the good stuff, and Lord have mercy, I should have started this first. Look how crappy it is. It's not even peeling off in a solid piece, so give me just a second to fix that. This is the stuff I was going to send you guys. All sorts of nastiness, and this tape hopefully will stick. So you need tape stirrups. So I always just go ahead and peel off a decent size because it's a big leg. Sticking it on my table here. And then now I have my popsicle stick. So what I'm going to do is, oh, and one thing I forgot to show you real quick is this leg. This is the dog. He'd be standing on the leg like this. So this is the top portion, the ventral, this is the dorsal side, medial, and lateral. So the dog's going to be laying on its side, so the lateral side of the leg is going to be up. And it has to be like that. You cannot bandage the limb like this. That is not appropriate. So you want to get it like that. Got my Telfa on there, and because this isn't adherent and I don't have a real big wound, what my plan is to just use my tape to actually secure the bandage on so I don't have to worry about it falling off. Now, this popsicle stick, you don't want to stick it here and then stick your other piece of tape and then have your tape stick here. You need to bring the popsicle stick down here, or tongue depressor, so you have stick left out. Now I have to take the other tape stirrup and put it on the medial side of the leg. And now I can tape it just like that. I can do this to make it stay. So it's supposed to be on the sides of the leg. So now I'm going to do this just to make sure it sticks, because we have some issues at school with our tape being pretty crappy. All right, so now this is where the bandaging portion starts. So this is kind of like the toilet paper game. Do you roll over? Do you roll under? A lot of people want to do this, and you cannot do this. This is not the proper way. That's how my toilet paper goes, but that's not how this bandage goes on. If you do this, what's going to happen is it's going to fall out of your hands and unravel, and you're going to be pretty damn pissed when you have to roll it back up. So you always start with like this, with the underside. And like I said in the video and lecture on bandaging, you have to go from medial to lateral. So left to right. So I'm going to start, you have to start all the way down here. Charlie, go ahead and zoom in on the toes so they can see where those toes are right here. You want just the toes showing. You can see my diamonds. Now I am going to go 360 degrees in the same direction. And if you can look down here, you can see that these are lined up all the way at the end. Now, the veterinarian I worked for, Dr. Randy Basinger, it's pretty snug, but it's not tight. I'm not stretching my diamonds. He said, because this is the part they stand on, that you need to do several layers to start. And so I did about 4-ish layers. So now what you need to do is when you come up on the upside, you need to go about 50% overlap. And it's hard to get your 50% at first. So I'm going to start out like that. And now when I come around, you can see I've got 50% of my bandage covered here. And now I'm still being nice and loose, and I want to make sure that I'm a full 50%, because if you don't do 50%, then you're going to run out of bandage material, and you'll have to hold right up above the elbow there and move that hand, because I'm going to be coming around. And you want to make sure that you don't have any wrinkles, especially on this bottom layer, because this is the layer that is contacting the skin. And so if you have a wrinkle in there and it starts rubbing, it's going to put pressure on the dog, and you're going to go way up higher there. And I'm going to come right up to there.
Okay.
So I am going to, this part is tricky because now you have to go just above that joint, and there's going to be a little bit of slack right there. And I'm going to go, once I'm up here, I'm just going to tuck that a little bit. Actually, I'm not. I'm going to try to not put a wrinkle in there. It's really hard when you get to that elbow, especially on an elbow that doesn't bend. So once I'm up here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come around a couple times. All right, so now at this point in the real world, which we're not in right now, I would tear this material off, and it would stick down, and I would take what I have left, and I would go back down to the bottom of my toes, and I would start all over again, okay? But for the sake of this, we have to conserve our bandage material. And so what you will tell me during your lab practical is that I would cut up here, and I would start back down here. And then what I'm gonna do, which you're gonna have to do, is to start coming back down with your 50% coverage. Even though that's not what we would have done in the real world, because we don't wanna do that. Okay, trying to, and one thing you see that I'm doing, I'm unraveling things if I see that I have like a wrinkle. You don't need to tug and pull on things. That's how you stretch the bandage material out, and you don't want to stretch it out. All right, so you can see that I ended right there in the middle. Something I want to point out to you is just because you end in the middle, like if I had started at the bottom and I had ended here, I would not start back at the bottom again, because then I would have a really fat bottom and not enough in the middle. So you can start where you left off. So I'm going to start here. And again, I'm going medial to lateral. And I'm back here at the bottom. And so the goal of placing this bandage is to make it a tubular shape. And as you can see, I'm pretty tubular. I'm going to do a second row here. Now I'm going to come back up with my 50%. Overlap. You can see my 50% overlap, not stretching my diamonds out. All right, so now I'm up here again, and what I would say, and I forgot to show you guys what a donut is, so I'll have to show you that in person in class when we do this, is I would cut off here, and I would start back at the bottom. But, again, for the sake of conserving the bandage material for Dr. Ruthie, we are not going to do that. So you can see I have a nice 50% going here. All right, now I've got to start back where I left off. So I'm just going to overlap that same area so I can get it to stay on. All right. So I'm back down here at the bottom, and if you're looking at it, my tube looks pretty good. It needs to be big enough to support the leg, and I've only used 3 rolls, but I think 3 rolls might be enough. Sometimes 4 rolls is what's needed. So I'm going to make sure that I go around the bottom here again a little bit more because I want to make sure it's not too squashed and that it ends up being... Okay, I'm sorry about that, guys. Chupa wants to go outside, but Charlie is busy videoing. And Simon, as you can see, is trying to help because everybody needs a fat cat to place a bandage. All right, so as you can see, this is coming together pretty nicely. Again, I'm back up at the top, and you can see that I'm trying to line them up as much as I can there. And I would cut, and I would go back down and start at the bottom. But here, for the sake of Dr. Ruthie. All right, so there I am. I have got my entire leg bandaged, and it looks pretty good. It looks pretty solid. Give me just 1 second. Good. Chupa's now outside. So now I'm going to take my cling. This cling is gauze. It does stretch a little bit, but what's great about this is called conform gauze. So it is going to, you're going to start back at the bottom, again in the same direction. I'm going to hold this down, and when you come down on the downside, you can crank it just a little bit to snug it down so you get a nice little tube. So here is my tube. And I'm doing the 50% overlap again. And as you can see, it doesn't take much of this. Sometimes I get students use 2 rolls. I'm not sure why. I'm going to come all the way up. I don't want to go above this cotton stuff because it would constrict down and cause harm to the animal. So I'm going to get my husband to come look on this side, and we're going to tilt this leg for a second. So I have this left over here, and I don't want it to fall apart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tuck it under another piece so it doesn't come off. So I just tucked it there. We're going to lay it back on its side. Now I'm at the point where I need to take my stirrups and reflect them back because we need this bandage to stay on. So I'm going to peel this off, turn it up, and pull. So this needs to make sure it goes most of the length here. I don't want it too short at the bottom, and I don't want it too short there where it doesn't stay on the leg. And you can see now my tape didn't stick to each other because I had that handy dandy tongue depressor. I'm going to twist it back on itself again, and I'm going to stick this one on just like that. All right, so my toes are visible, barely. Those 2 toenails that I'm looking for. Now what I need to do is I need to put on my vet wrap. Now I've already pre-stretched it, so I'm good to go. The problem with this vet wrap is you should roll it on the same way that the other stuff was. And if this was vet wrap, any other vet wrap besides the Snow Chew, it would look correct. So I'm going to put it on backwards because that's the way you're supposed to do it, even though this says No Chew on the other side, because they rolled it incorrectly. So I'm going to make sure I roll it off. I come around, place it gently on there. Again, I am going to unroll some. Now this is not done tightly, so you want to do a 50% overlap, and it's easy to tell you're 50% because you can see your white bandage material through it. So this is our protective outer layer. And unfortunately, I did not bring home any Elasticon to make it pretty at the bottom. So I just am going to lay this right over where the lighter color is, so that way I have a nice, completely covered bandage that's a solid blue without any white spots. Again, I'm going to loosen this, and this stuff really does stink. I don't know if anybody else can smell it. I can smell it. And again, you can see that I'm not stretching the no chew portion. I'm just laying it over. Okay, that's where I stopped. So now, and again, I do not want to lay this vet wrap above the white cotton area. So here I am, perfectly covered. It looks great there. And if you come down here, you can see it's nice and firm. My toes, I'm going to check my toes for swelling. It's not too tight. This is a nice, pretty bandage. And so this is what you're going to be expected to do for me to make a nice little tubular bandage, and knowing exactly how many rolls you need to make it look good. So if you guys have any questions, let me know, but we'll be practicing this again in person. Thanks.